So have you really thought about what goes into your morning cup of coffee? Have you ever taken a look at the back of your coffee creamer to see what's actually inside the bottle? Well, if you do take a look, you might be surprised to find a number of chemicals, oils, and artificial flavors. But don't worry, Laird Superfoods is here to help change that. Laird Superfoods started in 2015 when big wave surfer Laird Hamilton was looking for a coffee but couldn't find one on the market that met his standards. Laird started experimenting with his own morning coffee nearly 2 decades ago, and he found that when he started adding fats, like coconut oil, he had amazing energy throughout the rest of his day. And eventually, when he felt like he had perfected his recipe, he started sharing it with friends in the surf community, and now he's sharing it with all of the rest of us through Laird Superfoods. And Laird doesn't just make coffee, they also offer functional superfood creamers, instant lattes, prebiotic greens, and a variety of snacks and supplements full of wholesome, plant-based ingredients to keep you charged for wherever life takes you. Are you ready to feel more energized, focused, and supported? Go to lairdsuperfood.com and add nourishing plant-based foods to fuel you from sunrise to sunset. Use our promo code GOPODCAST at checkout to save 15% off your purchase today. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 108 of the Go Get Outside podcast. This is your host, Jason Milligan. Welcome back, welcome aboard. Before we get to the meat and potatoes of today's show, I just want to remind everyone that we have that new help out section on the website, gogetoutside.com. And there in that section, you can find a variety of media that can help you share this show. And I also want to remind you all about our brand new YouTube page, youtube.com/@gogetoutside podcast. And if you have trouble finding that, you can always go to our website, gogetoutside.com. Go to the video section, the YouTube page, and it will take you right there. Please subscribe to that YouTube page. There you can follow the audio podcast if that's how you prefer to listen to it. But in addition to all of that, we have videos from the original Go Get Outside web series, from the Untethered series. I'm adding videos constantly, and just this week I started what I'm calling enhanced podcast episodes. Right now there is only one of them. But I took episode 104, Diaries from the JMT, and added photos and video of that 2019 hike. So hopefully that will give all of you a more immersive experience when you're listening to that episode. So please go check that out. But that's enough of me shilling for my own show. Let's get to why you are here. Longtime listeners of the show may recognize today's guest. If you've ever listened to episode 34 with Kat Carney and Craig Kinsley, you may have wondered, I wonder how this road trip they're talking about went. Well, today you can find out because it has been 7 years since we recorded that podcast episode, and a lot has changed in their lives. You may recall that Kat Carney is an adventure photographer, and Craig Kinsley was an Olympian javelin thrower. And not only did they appear in episode 34 of this podcast, but they also were in the second episode of our Untethered on the Road series, and Kat was featured in an Untethered My Passion episode specifically about her and her photography. This episode was recorded on a rainy night at their home in Rhode Island. As fate would have it, the one night that we decided to record was when it would rain, so instead of recording outside on their patio, we are inside at their kitchen table. So this episode is a little more echoey than usual, but I think you will still have a great time. So let's get to it. Let's get to this episode about living on the road out of a Suburban for a year, about discovering a deep-seated love of surfing, a little bit in there about climbing, a whole lot about parenting because, spoiler, they are now parents. We'll also hear about their future plans as a family and learn about the power of the phrase, "Hello, Turtle." So if you're listening to this show, I know that you know that hydration is important. But hydration isn't just for super active activities. We need to stay hydrated all the time. I bet that when you are at work or when you're on a long road trip or you're traveling across country or across the world and you're spending a lot of time in airports, I bet you're not hydrating yourself enough. So yes, we know that hydration is important. It's important at all times, and that is what Liquid IV is here to help you do. And Liquid IV comes in a bunch of delicious flavors, 12 to be precise, including things such as sea berry, strawberry lemonade, lemon lime, pina colada, watermelon, strawberry, passion fruit, and it goes on. One stick of Liquid IV in 16 ounces of water hydrates you 2 times faster and more efficiently than water alone. And you want to know why? It contains 5 essential vitamins: B3, B5, B6, B12, vitamin C. It has 3 times the electrolytes of leading sports drinks, made with quality ingredients, non-GMO, and free from gluten, dairy, and soy for anyone with any sort of dietary restriction. But here's the thing that I think I like the most about Liquid IV. They are dedicated to equitable access to clean and abundant water across the world. So they're partnering with leading organizations to fund and foster innovative solutions that help communities protect both their water and their futures. To date, Liquid IV has donated over 39 million servings in over 50 countries around the world. Real people, real flavor, real hydrating. Get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code GOPODCAST at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code GOPODCAST at liquidiv.com. I think it's safe to say that a lot of you out there are coffee lovers. You probably brew something fresh every morning, or maybe you run to a local coffee shop or drive-thru on your way to work each morning. But have you ever taken the time to think about what is in your coffee or the other additives you add, like your coffee creamer? Well, Laird Superfood could help you up your coffee game with an entirely new coffee experience. With Laird, you'll get better ingredients, amazing taste, and functional benefits. All products are sustainably sourced and thoroughly tested to ensure that you are incorporating the cleanest, finest fuel into your routine. Their coffees are made from all natural, whole food ingredients, contain naturally occurring MCTs from coconut oil, have no artificial flavors, colors, or additives. And the Laird Superfood creamers are crafted from the highest quality, all-natural, real food ingredients. Are you ready to feel more energized, focused, and supported? Go to lairdsuperfood.com and add nourishing plant-based foods to fuel you from sunrise to sunset. Use our promo code GOPODCAST at checkout to save 15% off your purchase today.
I'm Kat Carney. I'm a photographer. We now live in Rhode Island, so a little bit of a change from last time. We used to live in San Diego, and we moved across the country to Rhode Island in 2017, I guess. What else do you want to know about me?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that. Now we need to know who this other guy in this brown track and field shirt is.
I'm Craig Kinsley. I am a father to a 1-year-old, which you forgot to say.
Oh, you're making me look bad now, or sound bad.
What a terrible mother.
I'm a business owner. I coached track for a while, and I'm not doing that anymore, which means more fun outdoors.
Do either of you want to guess when it was you were on the show before, or how long it's been since you were on the show before?
I think it was 2016, which was 7 years ago.
That is accurate. Yes, it was 7 years ago. So part of the reason we have you here is because, one, I'm at your house, I'm sleeping at your house, and I don't want to make you feel obligated to be on the show. But no, the real reason that I'm asking you to be on the show is because what your life was like 7 years ago and what your life is like now, 7 years later, is very, very different. So they have a whole old episode. I think it was episode 34. I didn't re-listen to it, even though I should have, because I'm a very professional person. So I don't remember what all we talked about, but I do know we talked about a whole bunch of hitchhiking and you two meeting in Alaska.
Oh, okay, so our origin story.
So we talked about all of those things. We don't need to cover that ground again. People can go listen to episode 34, I believe it is, if they want to hear that again. But let's just give a quick synopsis of those elements. catch us up to 2016 and then talk about the wild 7 years that you've spent since then.
Well,
And we're inside your house, so if people hear creaking, that is the sounds of the table and chairs here in Providence, Rhode Island, home of H.P. Lovecraft.
these chairs are guaranteed older than any of us, and they're extremely creaky.
Yes, and H.P. Lovecraft is a person that both of you living in Rhode Island are extremely familiar with, correct?
Yes. We had never heard of him.
Familiar.
We had never heard of him until Jason was obsessed with him, and then they came to
Erica.
Providence, and we took a tour of Providence and saw things that we've never seen, and it turns out his stuff is all over the place.
There is a lot of H.P. Lovecraft in Rhode Island, apparently, or in Providence specifically.
And apparently Craig used to walk right past his plaque daily and never noticed it. But anyway, yeah, let's get the quick synopsis of who you two people are. You know, the quick version, the like 2-minute version.
Quick, I'd say I'm from Connecticut and Kat's from Kansas, and we met in Arizona in between years of college. We were each enticed to go work seasonal jobs out at Lake Powell by different friends. Obviously, we didn't know each other and we came from different places, but we ended up meeting each other in Arizona, going to Alaska the next summer, started dating there. Kind of dated more or less until we got married in 2017, and we eventually moved to the same place to live together in San Diego. That was in 2013, and then we were in San Diego for 4 years. In 2016, we moved into a truck to live on the road.
Maybe right before that is when we did the podcast last,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
during that. I don't know.
No, right before that, because
Okay.
one of the things I remember us talking about is how you were building out the Suburban because you wanted to go travel. And then what happened is you did that.
Yeah.
And you got engaged and you got married.
Yeah,
you
and
had
I
a
think
kid,
you
and
were
moved to
one of
Rhode
the
Island.
first people, or maybe the first person that we told that we had gotten engaged because we saw you the day after.
Yeah, so let's go into that. So let's get to that in a moment because, yeah, there was a crossover where Erica and I, who was hiding in this room and refused a microphone because she
And
doesn't want to know.
giggling.
Yeah, and giggling. Erica and I were traveling, doing this road trip for this Untethered on the Road web series we were doing. And we met up with you guys, and it just happened you had just gotten engaged before that. But before we get to that story, let's talk about why the Suburban, how the Suburban, and what that whole trip looked like.
Well, Kat's looking at me, so I'm going to answer.
Kat has to talk too.
He
Yeah,
knows
so-
why the Suburban.
Well, Kat moved to San Diego to help with me following my dream of making a second Olympic team. And by the time we were done with the 4 years in San Diego,
Right, so quick humble brag. Craig here is a past Olympian and a spear thrower. He prefers the term javelin, but he throws a stick real good.
Yeah,
We
2012
used to.
London Olympics, and then that's when we moved. He moved to the Olympic Training Center, and then
and so we were there for 4 years.
Yeah.
Kat had started her photography business in 2016. The idea was to take off on the road, and it was outdoor kind of adventure and commercial photography. And so the idea was to take off on the road in 2016 and launch her business full time, quit her job and do the photography thing full time. And so we were looking for something to live in, and we wanted something that was 4x4, and we didn't have enough money to pay for a Sprinter 4x4 or any kind of 4x4 van, more or less, that didn't have 500,000 miles on it. And so the Suburban was the best option. We were just looking for large SUVs that would be comfortable to make a bed in the back of. And at first it was like trucks, and then we realized, well, a Suburban is a lot like a van. You just can't stand up in it. But you can pass
Like
through
a
to the
short van.
you can pass through to the front seats, and you can pass through to the back. And so if it's pouring rain, you have like a contained space where you have some comfortable seats to sit up front with actual headroom while you're seated, and then you have a bed that's long enough to stretch out in the back. And
we
you
had a
have,
fridge in between the two front seats, which was really nice to
So-
have.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. You had taken the console
Uh-huh.
and converted it into a refrigerator.
Yeah.
And
Which
so
is
you-
also where you taught Erica how to make her favorite snack.
Yes. Tortilla cheese roll-ups, in case anyone's wondering.
And so, yeah, it just made the most sense. And you could access the fridge from the front seats when you're driving, or you could access the fridge from the back bed while you were camping or laying in bed. And we just cooked out the back with the tailgate up. I mean, honestly, I think it worked out better than we could have imagined. And I don't think we would have done it any other way. And the Suburban was like super easy to drive and park. And so,
Craig ended up being on the road for what was it, 4 or 5 months, and then he had to go start his job in Providence, but then summer came and he was back on the road for 3-ish more months. So he spent a total of like 8 months on the road. And I ended up spending longer than a year on the road. So we got engaged living on the road, and then we got married, and I was still living on the road even though he had moved to Providence. Like maybe 2 months after we got married, I finally moved to Providence.
You were in San Diego last time I talked to you. You're building out this van. You've got a place there that you're renting, and then you guys take off on the road. At that moment is the thought, this is the last time in San Diego. Because you didn't know you were moving to Providence at that point, right?
No, we didn't know. It was so Craig knew he wanted to coach track and field. We didn't have any idea where he would eventually get a job. The jobs are like wherever colleges are, and you never know when a job is going to come up where. So we figured, well, he could just apply while we were on the road. But then his alma mater, the job opened up. The head coach there called him, and he said no at first because we had planned to do this, and ideally they would want him to go immediately. So he said no because we had this plan and he would just get a different job. But then they said, oh, well, you can come in the winter. You don't have to come during the fall semester. And so then he said yes. And then we spent 3 months on the road after that because we were already, I think, a little bit into the road life. And then he started, I think, in December of 2016 or something like that.
And was the idea to just live out of that Suburban indefinitely until you decided not to anymore, or was there a time limit?
I think we were kind of thinking about, we had started
year.
traveling in the summer of 2016, and the idea was a lot of the jobs open up right at the end of the school year as the track season winds down in the spring. And so a lot of the jobs open up in the late spring, early summer. So the idea was to travel for a year and then apply for jobs when they opened up.
But instead, an opportunity came a lot earlier than expected.
It came that summer, essentially, like at the very end of the summer as we had just started the trip. I said no, and they said come in January, and I said okay.
So tell us what that was like once you moved into the Suburban. It's pretty big change from living in a house that you're renting in San Diego.
I mean, it was the easiest transition of all time. It was just like the best thing that...
We thought it was the greatest thing on the face of the planet.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, if you've never lived in a vehicle before, you kind of forget the fact that, well, you can just go wherever the weather is awesome. So, like, you don't need a lot of living space. It's like, it's extremely luxurious to have refrigerated food and have a stove that you can cook at and like a proper bed that you can sleep in. And we had all those things. So it was like camping, and you can go to anywhere you want, but it's like glamping because you have everything, like all the creature comforts of home with you, and you can always be in a new location with perfect weather. And sometimes you're going to get rained on and all that, but it was just like, it was amazing.
Yeah, and we did have a couple places that we had to be like planned out. So the first part of the road trip was we had to go to Eugene, Oregon for USA Track and Field Championships because Craig was still coaching his training partner at that point.
Well, I guess no, that was his Olympic trials, wasn't it?
Oh, the Olympic trials,
yeah. That was the Olympic trials in 2016.
So we went up, and our first night was with a view of Mount Shasta, and we were both just kind of like giddy, like, look, we're looking at Mount Shasta and we're sleeping in bed, and this is like a comfortable bed, not like a camping sleeping pad. Like, we're fancy. We're so fancy now. We're really excited for the trip. And then we went up to Eugene, and Craig coached, and his training partner made the 2016 Olympic team. On the way, or we saw Crater Lake that portion of the trip, and I don't know, just like a bunch of great stuff in Oregon and Northern California. And then Craig actually had to fly to Rio de Janeiro to coach his training partner in the Olympics, and then we carried on with the trip. So I think now that takes us to like August or something. But we had a couple things planned out that we really wanted to do. Like all of November we spent surfing in Baja. We had like a rough idea of like go from Baja to the Arctic Circle in like Barrow, Alaska, and we didn't quite achieve that, but we still had a great time.
I do think, from what I've heard when I've talked to you guys other times, is Baja did leave a big impression on you, and also that's where you first surfed, right, Greg?
I had surfed a couple times in San Diego, literally a couple times, because I was always afraid I was going to get injured while I was training.
And then you, Kat, had you surfed at all before that?
Yeah.
Were you a surfer before then?
I had surfed several years before in Hawaii, and then I had surfed in San Diego a little bit while I was there, but really the summer that we were getting ready to leave, I was surfing with my friend as much as possible, really just because I wanted to be better at it before we went down to Baja and had a month. No, I wouldn't say either of us were like good.
I was definitely not a surfer at that point.
I wouldn't call us surfers, but we had surfed before, yeah.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that experience of the time you were in Baja, and
Well,
because you are very enamored with surfing now.
oh
right?
yeah, it's definitely my one number. It was not at that time. I wasn't a surfer, and I think Baja was the part of the trip that Kat was maybe most excited about, and the part of the trip that I was least excited about.
Yeah, he didn't really want to do it or see the value, and I was like, Craig, surfing is really fun. Like, just trust me on this. But that's also like a theme of our relationship is like the summer that we met, we were wakeboarding on Lake Powell, and he was just like, I just like don't think this is for me. And I was like, what? Wakeboarding?
I think I said the words like water sports aren't for me.
Yeah, you said
which
water
is, like,
sports
laughable.
is not for me. And I was like, well, you just tried like one time, like maybe give it a few more.
I don't like things that I'm not good at immediately.
Goes, and then literally, 3 days later, he's jumping the wake and he thinks it's the greatest thing ever. And I'm like, okay, just give things a little bit more time because he is naturally really good at things normally. I think I remember because it was both of our first times wakeboarding, I got up the first time and you didn't. And I think that's what did it really.
Possibly.
He's still sore.
All right, so wakeboarding, you eventually learned that you like because you understood that you don't have to immediately be good at something. So congratulations to you on maturing and aging in life.
Thank you.
So what was different? Because you said you went a couple times in San Diego. What was different in Baja?
My dad started surfing a few years before that, and I had like gone surfing, I'm using air quotes, because I went out on his like stand-up paddleboard, just fell off and got hit by the board, and it wasn't surfing, it was just like trying to paddleboard in waves, and I just fell off and got hit by the board, and I was like, I'm gonna hurt myself, and at that point I was still training, and it just seemed, first of all, not fun, second of all, dangerous, and just not worth the risk. Then we surfed a couple times in San Diego when I stopped training. I had an injury that ended my throwing career, but I was still coaching my training partner who I trained with for the 4 years. I wasn't going to let him, not be there for the last 3 months of his Olympic journey. But I surfed a few times and started to get the itch a little bit, but still I wasn't that excited about Baja. And then Baja, if you haven't been to Baja is essentially like California, but with, I don't know, 1/10 the number of people. Maybe less. I'm not sure. Like,
well,
Tijuana
the north is
kind
still
of
loaded with people, but we kind of just drove through the north as quickly as possible to get to Central and South Baja.
And some people would say that the waves are better. I mean, they're way emptier. And so, like California, it's like kind of scary sometimes, I think, learning to surf out there because there's so many good surfers in the water and you just feel like an idiot. And it's a lot of trying and not surfing.
And also certain areas people are not welcoming.
Yeah, it's like a cool community, but it's a terrible community at the same time because people like actively try to scare you away from their spots and they think that that's cool because it means more waves for them. That's not just like in some spots, that's in a lot of spots. Yeah. It's like a surf culture thing.
And certain breaks, people are cool with beginners being there and making mistakes, and then others, one mistake could lead to an immediate confrontation.
I mean, part of that's a safety thing too. Like there are certain types of waves that beginners shouldn't be on. It's not completely without reason. Some of it is safety, but a lot of it's just localism too.
Yeah. But yeah, Baja was insane, amazing, and there were consistent waves the whole month, and we surfed between 1 and 3 times a day. It launched us from beginner. We did a couple years worth of surfing in a month because that was the only thing we were trying to do, and it launched us from like beginner to intermediate pretty much in that month. And so
like
after
we could
that,
actually stand up and ride waves down the line.
And that was like, if you're getting down the line on a wave, I'd say you're probably an intermediate surfer. And so it was amazing. It launched our surf life. So that was one of the big reasons why. Well, actually, no, we already knew we were moving to Providence before that because that was in November.
By that time, we did
and
know,
fortunately, Rhode Island's on the ocean, so we were very lucky with that.
So it was a month that you were down in Baja. So let's talk about the logistics. So we know you've built out the Suburban, and you can keep most of your items in there. You can sleep in there. So what did that look like in Baja? Were you just driving around finding places to sleep, kind of boondock style, or were you finding campgrounds? Were you sleeping on the beach? What did that look like?
We had 2 books with us that one of our good friends in San Diego had given to us. She had been down multiple times and she'd been surfing down there, and we honestly just used those 2 books as guides for surf spots and for camp spots, which a lot of times are one and the same. And so we sort of just made our way down that. We kind of knew that we wanted to go further south than all the spots we had been to before. And we sort of drove a lot the first, 2 days. When we got to Central Baja, we started going basically to the coast and just slowly making our way down. We also went to the Sea of Cortez side once. That was really cool, but Craig thought it was too hot over there, so we went back to the Pacific side. But on the Sea of Cortez side, we saw bioluminescence, and that was awesome. And then we went back over to the Central Coast, and that was really our favorite area.
At least the time of year that we were there. It was like the weather was perfect and the waves were great.
Water is clear and beautiful, and there's just not much to complain about.
Yeah.
Do you remember what those 2 books were that you were using as references?
I think we have
them
them because we bought them.
Yeah, Surfer's Guide. We have them on the bookshelf there. We'll
Yeah,
put them in the
okay,
show
right.
notes.
Yeah, maybe Erica can retrieve them.
I think they're out there.
So let's talk about the other specifics. Baja, despite what some people might not know, is in Mexico. Some people in the United States think that Mexico is a very dangerous place where you wouldn't want to be for a month, or where the police are going to harass you, or any number of other things. Was there any credence in your experience to those? Did you have any issues anywhere?
There are military checkpoints, and then there are police stops occasionally. We only had 1 police stop when we went to La Paz. That was a little bit different feeling, the police stop, than the military checkpoints were just all business. They were just asking us questions, wanted to see our passports, wanted to know what we were doing and where we were going, just kind of exactly what you would expect. The police stop was just a little bit different, like, I don't know, like they were just trying to find something that maybe wasn't there. I speak conversational Spanish, so I was able to communicate with them, and I think maybe that helped our situation. But
long story short, there was nothing that we came upon that made us uncomfortable.
Sketchy, just a slightly different experience with the police stop versus the military stop.
But we had been told by some people who are, we had camped with and surfed with one of the days that somebody had kind of like lightly shaken them down. It was kind of like an unspoken thing, and I think they gave them like something, and like they drove off.
Of $20,
but we went, nothing ever happened, and they didn't say that it was like a super intense experience, but they did say something happened with the police checkpoint or whatever, but we never had any experiences like that.
So you didn't have to bribe anyone?
We did not. No.
Didn't have to bribe. And honestly, we like people like shared ceviche, like fishermen on the coast.
The fishermen were super nice.
There were far more positive experiences with random people that we met there.
The people in the towns, which
the guys
these
had
are
literally,
all like,
they had just caught the fish, and they like had just made the ceviche on the beach, and they like shared it with us.
Yeah, that was awesome. And the people in the towns were super nice. These are all like really tiny little towns.
Fishing villages.
Yeah, fishing villages essentially. So the population isn't that big. They're pretty used to surfers because they're if they have waves there. But yeah, everyone was super nice.
So did your days mostly consist of driving to some place, camping there, going out to the beach, surfing in the morning, maybe in the afternoon also?
Yeah, we surf like Craig said, 1 to 3 times a day. So in the morning, in the evening, sometimes in the middle of the day, just depending on what the waves look like.
A lot of times we were just like parked on like a dirt patch on top of the point where the waves were breaking right down below us. So it was like, you just
look
surf
at them
and
all day.
get in the water and surf for an hour and then eat breakfast and then maybe get back in, and it was just like crazy.
Surf and then nap and then surf.
And these
eat.
it was like your surf family, like your little caravans would join up. And I know when you were talking about the hiking the John Muir Trail, it sounded like people kind of, you get to know people and then you kind of travel together. Mm-hmm. The same thing happens there. There'd be a little caravan of 4 vehicles. There's always somebody who knows a little more about the area or a little more about the waves and would say, oh, well, it's low tide. We got to go check out this spot. And we knew nothing. We were complete beginners.
We learned a lot, honestly.
We learned so much. And the first night we drove up to this one break, we're looking out there and there's nobody there, and it's supposed to be this famous break, and we don't even know if it looks good or bad. It just looks scary. There's nobody even parked there. And then like a few hours later, all these cars drove in, like all these trucks drove in like on this dirt road, and like all these surfers got out and they're like all camping, and we're like, where were they? Like it turns out like when it's a little too big at that spot, everybody goes to this other spot. And then we were at that other spot, and then everybody just like drove off all at the same time. And we're like, where are they going? And when it gets to low tide, there's a jetty that has a barreling wave that's like 1.5 miles away that everybody goes to at low tide. And then everybody comes back there to camp. And so then we get to know the people, and then you're all of a sudden learning all these things. And now here you are in this little caravan traveling with this group, and you're learning an incredible amount about surfing, and you're surfing like amazing world-class waves. It was
If you
it was
just
incredible.
stick around long enough, that particular place we stayed for like the last 2 weeks, honestly, I think that we were there. We stopped on our way down, but then we also went all the way down south to like where the warm water was, and also because our friend was flying to La Paz and we needed to pick her up, and she stayed with us for, I don't know, a week or something like that. So we were down south for a week, and then we came back up to one of the first spots that we had stopped at, and we ended up spending the last like 10 days or something at that spot, and that's when we got to know everything and sort of fall into a groove a little bit better.
So how did you decide when it was time to leave?
We kind of knew that we'd spend a month there. I think we had to go to Thanksgiving or something like that. So
I don't know.
I think
But
we were in San Diego for Thanksgiving, I think.
We had planned on staying with a friend in Breckenridge for
the winter.
For the winter season. And I was starting work in Providence in January, so we went I think we decided to go a little early to Breckenridge
December
to try
was
to get
Breckenridge,
some
Colorado,
skiing in
right.
before, because I think I'd already
We had
bought
Epic
a season.
passes.
I bought an Epic Pass before ever getting the job in Providence, so I thought I was going to ski the whole season, and then I got a job in Providence that was going to take me there in the beginning of January, so I wanted to get my money's worth out of that in December.
So when we were on our road trip and we met up with you in Lake Powell, was that before or
I think
after
that was
you
in
went to Baja?
September.
That was right. It was.
Yeah.
Was that before or after?
It was before.
That was before we went to Baja.
Before you went to Baja. Let's talk a little bit about Lake Powell, because that's a place you both love. So that was a place you went on your trip, and it's also where you ended up engaged. Tell us about all of that.
Yeah, well, we met in Lake Powell in the summer of 2008. Had you been back there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd been back there.
We'd been back there, but not for like a long period of
been a
time or
while.
anything. So,
Maybe we hadn't been back there together.
oh yeah, I don't think we had been back there together. So we wanted to go back together, and also we had started canyoneering since we lived there in the summer of 2008. So there were a bunch of canyons we wanted to do, a bunch of things we wanted to see that we had loved when we were there for the summer. So yeah, we just went back to that area, I think, to experience and explore all of that stuff. And then we were paddling the pack rafts out to Lone Rock.
All right, let's stop there for a second. So pack raft, for anyone listening that's unaware, is a sturdy, strong, often overpriced raft that can be collapsed down and easily carried in a backpack. Some are shaped like a kayak, some are not, some are just shaped like a raft. And they often cost many hundreds of dollars. What you two were in pull toys called Explorer 200s that cost between $20 and $30.
I think you can get them for about $14.99 now.
Yes, and they often leak, and sometimes they leak the first time you use them, and they should not be trusted by anyone anywhere. There are lots of canyoneers that really love them. So that was just my sidebar there. So back to
I
you
love
were
Explorer
in.
200s. I think they're unbelievable. And they actually have two chambers. They have one chamber for like the raft portion
True.
and another chamber for the seating portion. And so for $14.99, they get you
It's just a commercial for Explorer
a fairly
200s
large
now.
portion of quality of or the usefulness of a pack.
That's right, and as long as you don't end up in a situation where it fails miserably on you and you're in an area where you can't self-rescue, it's great. But
Yeah,
but if
exactly.
you
Which is exactly where canyoneers use them. But
Yeah, so we paddled our pack rafts. Jason wanted me to say Explorer 200.
we should say pool floats out into the middle of Lake Powell.
Pool toys.
Not
Pool
an
toys.
actual pack raft.
Out into the middle of Lake Powell,
But
and
to Lone Rock, yeah.
which is like a butte sticking out of the middle of the lake. I proposed there, which was a long time coming because it was 9 years later.
From what I recall from the story, it's a very romantic proposal also.
Oh, yeah. Well, we were just like doing flips off of Lone Rock, and I came up out of the water, and he said, "Well, you think we ought to get hitched?" And I was like, "What? Really?" Because I didn't know if he was like actually asking me.
Hadn't he pushed you into the water?
No,
just
he
before?
pushed me after he asked.
gotcha.
Yes. So he asked, and then I was like, okay, if you're serious, yes. And then he pushed me into the water.
As one does.
He just wanted to make sure you knew exactly what you were getting yourself
Yeah.
into. And he's lived up to that, correct?
And then later, he fashioned a ring from paracord. And then I lost it surfing. So we don't have it anymore.
And now it turns out the lake is so low that area where we were jumping off.
That might not be true.
Well,
still
at
now,
some
but I think
point,
last year it was
a few
true,
months
maybe.
ago, within the last few months,
or a couple years.
within the last few months, as I said, Lake Powell was so low that you could walk out to Lone Rock, to that spot where we were jumping off into that giant lake, because it was so dry. I don't know if it's filled up again, but
we saw pictures of it dry. I was like, "Ooh, how deep
Now
was
we're-
it when
now-
we were backflipping?"
and it was always a dream. It was always a dream
Dangerous
of ours
was
to
that?
get like a tiny boat and go explore like every single little finger of Lake Powell. And now I'm actually kind of hoping that they end up draining it so that we can explore it on foot and like see everything that has been covered up. So
As it once was long ago. So we know you've hit up Lake Powell and then eventually end up in Baja. Before you lose Craig to Providence, where else were you able to go?
Yeah, so we did like a whole desert Southwest tours. That was part of when you came to see us in.
mostly, I think September,
Powell.
more or less.
Yeah,
was-
Escalante. We did Escalante. We did Zion. We did the Moab area. Oh, we met my parents in like Southwest Colorado for
couple 14ers.
couple 14ers, and then did $1 Million Highway, like a lot of stuff along that, and then down what was that? Well, we went to Mesa Verde,
and then a few others that were just as cool and
like
had nobody
right in
there.
that area. But yeah,
Can't
they were
think of the
totally
name of
empty and really beautiful.
Yeah, and $1 Million Highway, for anyone not listening, is southwestern Colorado. And do you both agree that that is just one spectacular stretch of highway, just gorgeous, beautiful mountains?
Definitely the prettiest part of Colorado.
It's my favorite part of Colorado, hands down. We did Handy's Peak. We did Sneffels. What else did we do while we were there? We did a couple like beautiful lake hikes that just the color of the water in the lakes and just the sort of mountains that are there are just, I think, I don't know, just some of the most beautiful.
As good as
in
it
the United
gets.
States, yeah. And also the leaves were changing. It was September, so they changed kind of early there, but it was just such a nice time of year to be there. Yeah, so okay, we saw all of that. So lots of desert, lots of surfing, and then we went to Breckenridge, like Craig said, because we had friends there, and we had bought Epic passes. So Craig wanted to get like at least 3 weeks of skiing in before he had to start his full-time job.
So let's talk about gear. You're in a Suburban. We know you've got surfboards. We know you have canyoneering gear. We know you have bicycles.
Oh,
You
I
have to
forgot
have
about that part.
clothing
We
and
went
various
mountain
other-
biking in like Northern California, like the Mammoth area, like
And in Colorado.
Nevada, Vegas area, and in Colorado. Yeah, we did all of that too.
Does that mean you're also carrying skis, snowboards, whatever?
Yeah.
So did you have any trouble making space for all of this gear? Did you ship any back, buy any, rent stuff? How did that
We
work?
may have had skis at our friend's house in San Diego. We may not have had them in
I
like
think
Baja because we were coming back through San
back
Diego.
in San Diego, they had like a shed.
We left
where
it in
used
their
to-
shed. But no.
Oh, I bought my snowboard in Colorado
Oh, okay.
that winter, and
Oh, I might have bought skis too. I don't even think I
Oh,
own
you
those
bought
skis.
skis.
I
I
think
think we
I didn't
showed up
own.
in
I don't think I
Colorado and
owned
we bought
skis.
gear.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't own skis at that time.
we had a rooftop box also, so that was helpful.
You also had solar panels, right?
Solar
I seem to
panels
recall.
on top of the rooftop box, yes.
And
Everything was on top of everything else.
did those solar panels really make a difference? Like, did that generate a decent amount of electricity for you?
I mean, it ran our
You could run the fridge indefinitely.
which was just kind of what we needed it for. For like charging my camera, I actually never really charged my camera gear and stuff. There were enough like libraries and coffee shops we could stop in that I like charged stuff while we were like editing and just going through pictures. And Craig wrote. Actually, we have, I think, the first like 4 or 6 months or something like that on what was that thread called?
Expedition portal thread.
An Expedition portal thread. So like we had a ton of photos and essentially the journal of our time on the road on Expedition Portal. I think it's still there.
So 6 months of not of a car, a lot of expenses are removed, right? So you don't have to pay rent, you don't have to pay utilities, variety of other things. But you still have plenty of costs from gas and day-to-day life.
Fixing the
Yeah. Oh, you had to fix the truck at some point? Or just maintenance?
Numerous times,
yeah.
It
fix
was,
the truck.
It was 15 years old and had 135,000 miles on it when we got it. It needed to be fixed pretty frequently. But
I'd say once a month something happened.
It ended up being pretty reliable.
We picked up hitchhikers in Zion. We were driving back to Hurricane, I think.
Kolob.
Yeah, in the Kolob area.
And our car, the truck promptly
just slowly puttered to a stop.
Just died.
And
like we picked him up and like 2 minutes later he just died. He was like, and he was like, all right, well, I'll see you guys later.
They just got out and
got
put their thumbs out, and someone picked them up pretty quickly.
If this was like a sitcom or something, you would have driven up, you would have picked him up, the car would have broken down, then the next shot would have been all four of you hitchhiking.
Where we were parked was like a dirt parking lot, like back on dirt roads somewhere, so at least we got them to the highway, or like not the highway but a paved road.
Meanwhile, they were hiking ahead. I mean, they were hitchhiking ahead, and they're like, there's some other guys back there that need someone to go help them out.
Yeah, we didn't have phone service, so we had to hike up a hill to get phone service to call a tow truck.
It was just a fuel pump, which is like kind of a not unusual thing to go out at that time.
So how are all these costs being covered? Are you working while you're on the road, or did you just put away a lot of money ahead of time? How is that being handled?
Both. We'd saved money in order to be able to go on the trip, and then I was shooting for outdoors companies, which was great.
You made as much money that year as you did the year before.
Yeah, right? Honestly, we didn't really spend any of our saved money because I made enough money that year to like cover the cost. Again, it's like not that expensive to live on the road in an old Suburban. So yeah, gas and fixing the truck were our biggest expenses, I think. Other than that, we don't eat out that often. We don't drink really.
We already owned everything that we had in the truck, so
pretty low maintenance for the most part. Yeah.
All right, so another question that Eric and I used to get from people all the time when they found out we had traveled in a car for 2 months together. Did you fight all the time? How did you get along?
We would have
killed each other.
So nothing had changed.
Nothing changed. Still fighting all the time, yes.
I don't think we fought any more or any less. I can say that we had more fun, though.
Yeah, we definitely had more fun, yeah.
So.
We had a ton of fun, and just like when you're getting to do canyons, ski or surf or hike or climb. Well, Craig doesn't really like climbing, but I would force him to belay me sometimes. Or mountain bike. You're kind of just moving all the time, so there's not as much time for fighting.
Do you think Craig doesn't like climbing because he wasn't immediately good at it?
Oh, that's interesting. I do feel like he has climbed enough times now to know whether or not he likes climbing. Because he'd go to the gym with me. He's done a lot of single pitch stuff with me too. And when we lived in San Diego, I made him come with me fairly often. Right, so I think he actually just doesn't like climbing.
We can let him off the hook.
It may have been that early on, but it's just anxiety of being up high. Mm-hmm. And so canyoneering was anxiety inducing being up high and on, but it was worth it because of going to the incredible places that nobody else sees. That was totally worth it. And the whole process of it was awesome. And you spend so little time on ropes. Like you set up the rappel and then you go down the rope and that's what you do. The climbing part, like being out on the wall for an extended period of time, just was not fun at all. Like it just is way too scary for me.
All right, so 6 months together and then he takes off and leaves you alone?
Yeah, basically. He moved to Providence in the winter. Oh man, I honestly don't even know what I did. I think I stayed and skied for another month or so, and I did a couple winter 14ers, which was really fun. Then I think I went to try and find warmth, and I went maybe back down south into San Diego. So during this time too, and actually when Craig left, I was able to focus on really just like booking photo jobs and stuff a lot more. So I was really more frequently going from job to job during that time, doing stuff with meeting friends places. But yeah, I kind of just like wandered around the desert southwest while it was getting warmer and just
And that was for another
jobs.
6 months, right?
Yeah, Craig came back in June, I want to say. But yeah, about five and a half months or so.
Oh, right, because then you have summer break.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so when he came back...
Yeah, so I flew out to
Oh yeah, I don't even remember.
Vancouver.
Yeah, I was in Vancouver at that time.
So she'd been...
Or no, I was in Squamish climbing.
So we'd been apart for 5.5 months or so, and I came back, I flew out to Vancouver. I found that my wife, whose name is Kat, had turned completely feral, which was very fitting. She'd been living on her own in a truck for the last
I
5.5 months.
did a lot more climbing when he was gone, and so
And she was a complete wild animal.
Was it a lot more fun when he was gone?
No, I definitely would not say that. I much prefer having him on the road with me, but I did definitely do a lot more climbing, and I got way better at climbing. And that is the time that I like learned trad, and I took a bunch of trad clinics, and I met you guys at Red Rock Rendezvous.
Oh,
and
right,
stuff.
right.
Yeah.
And then we got on Birdland, and then I forget why we bailed.
I don't think we bailed.
We did. We got partway up, and then we bailed.
I don't even remember that. Wow.
I forget why. I think it was like late in the day. Well, I think we got a late start.
We definitely got a late start.
And we had, like 4 of us or something? 3 of us? I forget.
There were 4, I think.
I mean, I can edit that out, and I can just say we rocked Birdland real hard.
Yeah, I didn't remember. I was just like, whatever, we did a climb. I don't know if we got to the top or not. It was pretty. But yeah, I was just learning all of that stuff. And that's when I did the Chief on Squamish. One of my friends that lived in Washington, I was climbing at Index with them. And then he was like, well, I'm not doing anything for the next 2 weeks. So he came up to Squamish, and he was a very skilled climber, climbing every single day, like a ton of really difficult routes. And I was getting into really good shape, but also completely exhausted. And then we did the Chief, which I don't remember how many pitches it was, but it was like somewhere 12 to 18 pitches, I think.
Nice.
So we top out, hike all the way down, and I have to go pick up Craig from the airport because he's coming that day. And I fall asleep in the truck, and I'm like, we get down in the afternoon sometimes, so like 1 or 2. I don't have to pick him up until like 11 p.m. or something like that. So I'm like, I'm just going to take a nap. I wake up at 10 p.m. Like I just slept for a lot of hours straight. And I'm like, oh shit. Floor it to the airport basically, but I made it on time. I don't think he even noticed, but I was definitely a wild animal at that point because I don't remember the last time I had showered. I literally just climbed all day, passed out for a minute. I don't even know if I knew like what day it was or what time of day or anything.
All right, so now we're going to talk about the part that's going to bore Craig. So you said you were doing more climbing while he was going. You're hitting up all these climbing areas. Yeah. Let's tick them off really quickly. If you can even remember, like, it was all through the West and then through Western Canada also?
I climbed in, like, Mammoth area, in Zion, too, like the Kolob area. We climbed there. My friends would just meet me, so my friends from California would meet me, like, somewhere in California. We climbed in Yosemite. We climbed...
I mean, did you hit up, like, Indian Creek?
Yeah, climbed in Indian Creek. Yeah, see, you're saying the names, and I'm like, yes, I definitely climbed there at some point, but I honestly don't remember. I know I climbed in Index in Washington, a couple other places, and...
Smith Rock, maybe?
We climbed at Smith Rock in Oregon. And yeah, now that you're saying the places I remember climbing there, but up in Squamish and in like Vidaboo in Wyoming, but I just don't remember the timeline of when all of this stuff was.
So you're hitting up a lot of different areas with different types of rock, different rock quality, different styles of climbing. Did any of them stand out, or did any of them speak to you? Like, for instance, I've never been Indian Creek. I'm a terrible crack climber, and I really need to go there to learn.
Well, I also thought that about myself, and and all my friends told me crack climbing is just a thing that's really painful and horrible until one day you get it, and then you're just fine, and then it'll be your favorite type of climbing. And I was like, you guys are crazy. This is wildly painful. You're shoving your hands and your feet into these cracks. Like, this is nuts. And then, like, one day I figured it out, and I was like, this is my favorite type of climbing. This is all I want to do now. I loved Indian Creek. When people ask me where my favorite place to climb is, I usually say Indian Creek.
Even though you couldn't remember the name of it 2 minutes
No,
ago.
I remember the name. I just, like, didn't remember that I had climbed in Indian Creek on that particular section of the trip. But yeah, I definitely did. During that time, I was mostly focused on learning to become proficient at trad climbing. So I was mostly trad climbing with occasional sport climbing. But the Indian Creek trip, Index, and Squamish were probably where I did my most practice, and at Red Rock Rendezvous during that time too. But because I took a clinic there and stuff. But yeah, I was just practicing becoming proficient at trad.
That's a lot of time to be able to travel and climb in different areas. How do you feel like your skills advanced in that time period?
I got way better. When I moved to Rhode Island, or when I moved to the East Coast, I climbed at the Gunks, and like one day I led, 15 trad climbs in a day. In the Gunks. And yeah, I climbed then all over New England, like fun trad, most of it single pitch,
trad stuff, but I felt like a more competent, confident trad climber after that.
So while you're traveling for these 6 months, he's taken off. So Craig, what's going on with you during those 6 months?
I had started coaching the team that I was a part of in college, the Brown University throwers. So shot putters, discus throwers, hammer throwers, and javelin throwers. And I was making up a lot of it because I only threw one in college. I threw the javelin. And so I knew a lot about the other events, but I'd never done them myself. And it was my first NCAA coaching job. And I'd spent a lot of time around a lot of great throwers, but coaching people and developing athletes was new to me in 3 of the 4 events that I was coaching. So the whole weightlifting side and training side and writing training and all of that I was super comfortable with across all the events, but I was in full learning mode. Learning while doing mode for those entire 6 months. It was great. A ton of work, and you realize as a coach, you never really have the resources that you feel like you need, and so it feels a little bit like being a teacher where you're constantly in it and constantly feeling like you're trying to make up for a lack of resources with more of your own time. So it actually worked very well that Kat wasn't there, because I think I lived with one of the other coaches, and I went from like outdoors 100% of the time to track and field 100% of the time. I think I was probably in the office around 9, and then I would leave the weight room after. I would go lift and hang out with the coaches in the evening after coaching, and sometimes we'd get home at 8 p.m. You know, we will have spent the entire day out there either like working out ourselves or coaching or recruiting or, you know, talking shop with the other coaches and just learning from them. It was awesome. That was like a great time.
Something I think is really interesting about this, so you both go on this road trip together and you spend 6 months doing overlapping activities and overlapping interests. Granted, at first Craig was not into surfing, and that changed. And so you spend these 6 months always together doing these activities you both enjoy together. Then you split for 6 months and go off and do the things that the other one has no interest in. Pretty sure Kat doesn't want to throw javelin.
No.
And we know Craig not super stoked on climbing
that's
rocks.
True. That is true. That's true.
So you like went off and had like your personal like bachelorette experience.
Yeah.
No, that is true. And I remember coming back to Vancouver, like flying into Vancouver, and she was talking about all this stuff, and I know very little about climbing. Also, I have very little interest in climbing, and so it was like we were like re-acclimatizing to each other, acclimating to each other.
It was,
because we just had we were like, well, we need to do things that we both like.
And
to do
I had him belay me on a trad climb.
And I was like, I don't want to do this shit. This is terrible. I don't want to watch my wife die in front of my eyes.
It was horrible because he was just yelling, oh, like, I'm not sure about that piece that you just placed and all this, which is like, as your leading trad is not what you want to be hearing. Yeah. So I just came down from that one climb. I was like, and we're done here. And then my friend Kevin, who was the one that was climbing with me in Squamish, was like, well, I think it's my cue to leave now because this guy doesn't even want to climb. But we went and did a rope swing into a lake, which is definitely Craig's speed. And so they had fun doing that.
So how much longer do you travel from this point before it's over? Because it's been a year now that you're traveling, Kat.
Yeah, so we went...
I went until mid-August.
You also are engaged, but you're still not married at this point, correct?
Yeah.
True.
So that's got to happen at some point,
Yeah,
too.
so we travel all through the summer. Then we go to Kansas mid-August, and we got married September 3rd. So you didn't go back to Providence until right after we got married, I think.
And this is 2017 at this point?
2017 at this point, yeah. Yeah, so we were supposed to go to Alaska. So when we were up in Canada, the idea was keep going north. We had started dating in Denali when we were working in Denali National Park in Alaska, so we wanted to go back there. And then we wanted to go all the way to the Arctic Circle and jump into the ocean in Barrow, Alaska. That was the goal. However, our friends that lived in Breckenridge, that was very rude of them to also get engaged and plan their wedding for that summer. And so
Some people are just assholes.
I know. So we went over to Banff National Park and then down through Glacier National Park, through Ohio. We saw friends from Alaska in Idaho, in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. But we slowly made our way to Breckenridge where they were getting married. So that instead
they were the same people that we stayed with, so
yeah,
they were allowed to get
good friends of ours.
because...
Just impeccably bad timing for their wedding.
I mean, they really should have consulted you.
I know.
Unacceptable and unforgivable.
I guess we could have flown, but we were on a budget.
So when does Suburban get sold and when does it all end?
Okay, so the Suburban doesn't get sold for a couple more years at least, I think. So
A few more years.
So does it get used, or does it just sit at the house?
we got married. Craig went to
September
Providence.
2017.
I kept traveling in the Suburban for a few months after that. Yeah, we got married at the beginning of September 2017, and then I think I moved to Providence December of that year of 2017. As I had a few work things that I need to finish out west before I could move. So then I drive it across the country.
We parked it at the condo for
6 months, maybe.
yeah, and then you drove it back
And then I
across the
drove it
country,
back across the country.
and you parked it in Phoenix.
And I left it in Phoenix in a storage facility so that I could fly to it, get in it, and do my jobs out west. So
Oh yeah, and you visited us during COVID. What would that been, 2020?
that was 2021 that we visited.
2020.
No,
You
no,
were-
that's another. There's another.
You were in the Suburban then, right?
Yes,
We were.
Right, so you still had it then.
But I left it out there in Phoenix, and I flew to it, I don't know, multiple times each year for the next 3 years. I flew to it multiple times, did my jobs out west. I was like, oh, I have 2 homes, one a Suburban on the West Coast, and our condo on the East Coast. It sounds more luxurious than it is, but yeah.
And then COVID shut everything down, which actually was like a huge moment to think about life, because I think it was for everybody, but I'd been going for 4 years and my life was pretty much only track and field, and then surfing whenever I'd have some time.
And mountain biking.
And mountain biking. So we started out, yeah. So we were still doing fun things, but it was more weekend warrior things. And after traveling in a van for a year, or in a truck for a year, you're kind of itching to get back to it at every turn. And COVID shut everything down. I wasn't even coaching people really. So we had the opportunity we decided to fly out in 2021, when things started to calm down a little bit. We flew out to Phoenix, got in a Suburban, and hit the road again. Really only for a month.
6 weeks, I think.
6 weeks. Okay, so for about 6 weeks, which was amazing. And it was another reminder that we absolutely have to do it again. I think that'll be in the back of my mind all the time.
So this is 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And we visited you guys.
That's right. You did visit us. You came and visited us and did not give us COVID, and we did not give you COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. But the timeline is definitely bringing us close to the fact that at some point, Kat is going to have a baby.
Oh, so in 2021 is when I got pregnant, like later that fall. So I think we visited you guys in January. And then in the fall, we got pregnant and had Van, our cutie little 1-year-old, in May of 2022.
So let's talk about that. So after you've lived in a Suburban for all this time and spent all this time traveling, this is a decision from the two of you, I must assume, that you're going to change your lifestyle very drastically. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about why you made that decision and how you feel about that decision.
Strangely, at the time, I definitely thought it was going to be a major sacrifice to lifestyle, and certainly to like outdoor lifestyle. But I actually think it's turned out to be a huge step towards more outdoor future lifestyle stuff, because I was so like gung-ho and 100%, felt like 100% of my life was track and field, that I didn't really realize it, but I'd been like kind of totally neglecting the kind of like outdoor identity part of myself. And so having Van was a dramatic reminder, and it really made me aware of how much time I was pouring into track and field, and also how much like kind of stress, and I couldn't turn my brain off, and how much stress I was bringing home every day for something that was supposed to be like a fun dream job. And it was just a reminder. At the end of the day, it was pretty clear that I was either going to be a great coach or a great dad, and it was going to be very hard to do both of those things. Kat travels for her work, and I traveled for that job. Anyway, I ended up leaving my job about 6 weeks ago, and so I think having Van actually really like jump-started my brain to say, well, let's make a lifestyle that's going to be really conducive to having kids and doing the things that we want to do, and that kind of cut out full-time track and field coaching, which I think is leading us to having a lot more flexibility to do the kind of things that we've done in the past, even though we have the kids, which will make things different and more challenging. But a lot more of that, I think, is in our future than it would have been had we not had a kid.
We've both always known that we wanted to have kids, but timing was just always like, okay, but when? Because we were both kind of just like, well, we're too busy doing stuff and living our lives the way we want to, and also we really like our lives the way they are, and we're having a lot of fun. And then I think we just came to a point, which I honestly feel like Craig's job was like maybe good for that, because we came to a point in our lives where we had settled kind of a little bit. Like after we lived on the road, he was in this job, you know, for at least the first couple of years he was passionate about and cared about a lot and was more interested in doing than like traveling all the time. And I started a photography business that kind of had me still traveling all over New England and stuff, but it was definitely more stable. And so we were both more stable and steady than we had been in our previous lives at all. And so honestly, it was just like, okay, well, I guess the time is now. Like, I don't know did we ever even talk about, we just thought like, seems right. And that was kind of it. So we were like, I guess if we're going to do it, it's now. So that's how, we didn't really discuss it further than it's like, this seems like a good time.
So let's talk about physical impacts, because Kat, you've been an athlete, you've been an extremely active person your whole life. And this decision, while it greatly affects both of you, is going to affect you physically more than him.
Yeah.
How did it impact you?
Yeah, so the first trimester, you can often have like nausea and stuff like that. They call it morning sickness, but you can really feel sick all the time. And I was in my really busy season I photograph adventure elopements now. And
puking behind bushes while people are getting married.
Yeah, so I wanted to avoid the puking during someone's elopement, obviously. So I hired someone to come with me for a few of them during the time that I was really feeling nauseous. I never puked during anyone's elopement. I did puke before and after sometimes, but not during. So that was, the first trimester was definitely trying in that way. But otherwise, physically, other than feeling nauseous, I was perfectly, fine and capable of doing everything. Second trimester, kind of the same thing, except for the nausea had gone away, thank God. But I was, just getting bigger, but not to the point that I couldn't still do a bunch of stuff. I think I surfed until I was like 5 or almost 6 months pregnant. Then I didn't fit in my winter wetsuit anymore because I was that pregnant in the winter. Then the third trimester, I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes. And so things just got crazy in the third trimester, honestly. Like, it was definitely really hard mentally and physically. But yeah, then like as you get closer to your due date and stuff, I just think that, yeah, you sort of take for granted like how much you use your body, especially as an athlete. And, I slowly, like the first thing I stopped doing was mountain biking. The second thing I stopped doing was, I stopped climbing, then stopped mountain biking, then stopped surfing. And I was like, okay, I guess all I can do is walk now because I can't really run per se anymore. We did snowshoe while I was pretty pregnant. I did shoot a couple winter elopements, and I had like micro spikes when I was 7 months pregnant on frozen waterfalls and stuff. And it was a ski elopement, but I had to hire someone to shoot the ski portion of it. I definitely challenges that maybe you could guess were coming based on my job and just the fact of what being pregnant means. But after having the kid, I think everything took a little bit longer than I thought it was going to. I was very excited to start working out again 6 weeks after and just like moving. And then I went surfing literally the first day that I was allowed to, even though the waves were like tiny and almost non-existent, but I just wanted to be in the water. So physically, yeah, it was definitely like pretty challenging as a person who really likes, all of my hobbies involve using my body somehow. So challenging, but ultimately like so worth it.
Yeah, so let's talk about the little guy.
Yeah.
Sounds like you do not regret the decision.
He said turtle today.
He said hello turtle.
He said hello turtle.
And not to brag about myself on my show, but I am the person that taught him to say hello.
Yeah, Jason taught him to say hello yesterday, and then he said turtle today, and then he combined the two, hello turtle. He's 16 months old, so basically he's a savant.
Yeah, basically a genius. Yeah, without a doubt. I think no one would disagree.
Yeah, we love him. He's like the greatest and so much fun.
He keeps us from being on our phones too much. Mm-hmm. That's a huge thing that I didn't anticipate, is like really the whole like taking care of your child. It really seems truly impossible when you're watching other people do it. But then when it's your child, you like want to take care of them because they're this tiny, like kind of helpless little being. And so it's like nice to take care of them. And also it essentially just, you realize how much time you just wasted doing completely useless shit. And so you're now like, you know, screen time is down to almost nothing because you're spending time with this little helpless little goofy monkey that you have now in your house. And it's hysterical. It's great. So,
and what has been super fun is going biking with him and teaching him, you know, hiking, just doing all the things that we love doing and seeing him do them for the first time or experience them for the first time. Like the first time we put his bike helmet on his head, he just screamed and cried and wanted nothing to do with it. Now, if you show him his bike helmet, he gets very excited and can't wait to get into the bike trailer. So it's fun to see the evolution of like how much he is enjoying doing the things that we do outside. He loves swimming. He loves going in the bike trailer. Yeah, also, the first time we put him into the hiking backpack, he screamed and cried. And then once Craig started walking with him, he was like, okay, this is not that bad. And then we found wild raspberries, and he was like, this is great.
I do remember yesterday when he didn't get to go into the bike trailer and thought he was going to get to go in the bike trailer. He was very unhappy about that. Yeah. But today he did get to go in the bike trailer in the rain.
Yeah. He's an all-terrain baby.
Now I think is a great time to talk about the future that you guys want to build. And I know this is something we talked about a while back. You've already alluded to it somewhat, Craig. What do you both want to talk about with where you want to go from here as parents and as people who once lived in a vehicle and want to live in a vehicle again, correct?
Yeah, we want to live in a vehicle again. You just said it, Jason.
That's what we want. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I like to set up jokes but tell the punchline before. Yeah.
Well, Kat is usually the person in our life who has the broad, the long-term vision. And also she I don't know dates. I don't know anyone's birthday. And Kat knows things about dates.
My birthday's October 28th.
But Kat was like, in the summer of 2026, we're going to take off on the road for a year. And I was like, what? What? It's so specific. She's like, it's the last year before Van goes to daycare. And so she's like, so we have to go have our second kid, and then our second kid will be 2 years old, and then Van will be 5, and it'll be right before he goes to daycare, or goes to kindergarten, and we're going to spend the whole year on the road. And it took me 30 minutes to be like, yeah, that's what we're doing. So 2026, now we're telling everybody, 2026, we're going to get an RV, we're going to get on the road, that's what we're going to do. I'm working on figuring out what that's going to be.
And Craig is the one who knows everything about what vehicle is the right one for the job, so naturally he has been researching.
So we'll figure that out. We'll take off on the road for a year, and then, and so, I think when we first went on the road, it was like had finished up a chapter in my life, and Kat was opening a new chapter in her life, and we were untethered to anything. So the whole, me leaving my job has opened up a lot of possibilities. Kat has inspired me to never have a boss again because she doesn't have a boss other than herself. And so we're starting it. We have a couple other businesses going. Kat is also, she's like an eagle for business opportunities. So she's always seeing where money can be made and where, and so I, more or less as soon as I stopped coaching full time, she had multiple business ideas. Actually, they were already developing before I even stopped coaching. So we already kind of had a plan from that perspective when I left this job, and now we have pretty significant flexibility. Although we're in the building phase where we have pretty significant flexibility, but we're going to have hopefully very flexible lifestyles soon. So that's the plan. We're just working towards that.
So do you think you're going to be able to pull that off? Super flexible lifestyle, raising 2 kids, and traveling.
Oh, we don't have the second one yet.
We're not even pregnant, as far as we know. I hope we are, but maybe not.
We're not currently pregnant.
But according to the math equation that it sounds like you wrote out to figure out how this all falls into place, that needs to happen.
Yeah, it needs to happen, within the next year or 2.
I have absolutely no doubt that it will.
Things will fall into place when they need to, we suppose. It kind of doesn't work like it happens when you want it to. It just sort of happens when...
It'll work out even better than we are imagining right now.
Yeah, probably. Hopefully. That's the case. But yeah, what was the question?
It's gonna work out. She's a business pro. So.
And building 2 photography businesses that I realize that I like the business side of things just as much as I like the photography side of things, which is kind of weird for an artist to feel that way. But yeah, I enjoy that part of it too. So it's kind of fun for me it's like a game. How do I win this game? That's it.
How do you destroy the competition?
Yeah, basically,
and get all the money?
How do you devastate the environment?
I'm a really competitive person. So competing with myself, it's just like, I'm not necessarily competing against anyone else. Just like, can I do better than I did last year? And it's like, well, with some time and focused effort, it turns out the answer is usually yes. So when we decided that, like, okay, this is enough of this job. He does have a ton of skill, like really unusual kind of like niche skills, right?
Oh, like throwing a stick real good?
Yeah, exactly. Like not that many people are experts in the things that he is an expert in. So definitely there's a business there, whether he likes it or not.
I have a new boss.
No, but we're excited about the possibility and the potential and just where the future is going to go, which, definitely includes living on the road again. I kind of think we'll go back to that for multiple stages in our life. Like, I don't think we'll live on the road for the rest of our life, but I think, 2026 we'll live on the road for a year. Then maybe, like, who knows, it's at that point, that will be exactly 10 years from the first time we lived on the road. Maybe every decade we'll live on the road for a year. I don't know.
Every 7 years I'll stop in and have you check in with me and record one of these.
Sounds great. That sounds great. I feel like that's too infrequent, though. Maybe every 5 years.
Well, we see him in between that, but...
Oh, yeah. No, I mean living on the road. Like.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
He wants to make that every 5 instead of every day.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Fine with me.
This is the part that might be a little tricky. So there are probably other people listening that are like, oh, I want to go live in a van. I want to do whatever. Do you have any advice for people? Because in our society, it's very easy to tell people there's a particular path you're supposed to follow in life, and this is what it's supposed to look like. And you two have really not followed that path at all, with little moments where you're on that traditional path. So is there anything you think you could recommend to people who are interested in breaking free of like a traditional life path and pursuing something along the lines that you two have?
Visit our website, vintagefreedom.com. I don't know. I guess the big thing is, I'd say, and I feel like everybody has their one friend. Hopefully everyone has their one friend, or like that one time in their life that they had a lot of interesting conversations and they talked a lot about their life and where they wanted to go and all these
things they
different
cared about.
Things they cared about. Don't stop doing that. Like, have someone that you hopefully find somebody who wants to talk to you about that, and do that a lot. I don't know if it's American life or just, I think it's probably just life in general, can have you go for months and sometimes years and you don't do any of that, or very little, or you don't feel like you have the time to do that. But try to make the time to do that, to think about your life and to think about the things you like to do and how you might be able to make your life, more conducive to living that kind of life, the life you want to live. And just spend a lot of time thinking about it. The other thing would be like, don't not pay attention to your finances, because I also think that it's very easy to live your life and pay your bills and not pay any attention. But if you pay attention and you kind of know the rules of the game, you can make a dramatic improvement over if you weren't paying attention.
I was going to say, this is more practical advice than inspirational, like Craig's first part was. But if you don't want to buy a house, don't buy a house. If you want to buy a house, don't buy a house you can't afford. Buy a house that is like super, super well within your range. If you live in a place where you can't afford to buy a house,
don't buy one.
Don't buy one. Or if you really want a house, move to a place where you can afford to buy a house. Because I think that's one of the things in adulthood that people like get really like underwater with, or feel like they're drowning or overwhelmed, or kind of like sort of starts encompassing their whole being is, oh, I have to own a house. I have to own a house. They buy one that's like as much as they can afford, and then they're like, oh shoot, I have to keep working like this forever. And I think you feel more trapped if you have this large payment that you have to pay. You don't feel like you could maybe take the risk to start working for yourself, or do something that you really wanted to do, or change careers. So you sort of...
And you sure as hell can't take off and live on the road.
Right. So I'm saying house, but I kind of mean like anything, car, right. Like whatever it is, just like live smaller.
Live way within your means, as
super
aggressively within your means as possible.
Because like none of what we've done or are going to do would be possible without like planning extensively for it. So that is something that I think gets unsaid a lot of times. You talked about it a little bit when you asked how could we do the first time around, and we said, well, we saved for it, but then we also, like had a business that was making money on the road. That's something that you're right, is the most asked question. Like, well, how do you afford to do that? And it's like, well, depending on how you live on the road, it can be really cheap too. Like, we stayed in dispersed campgrounds on like national forest land and BLM land out west, Walmart parking lots. And just like I think on that entire year in 2016 to 2017 that we lived on the road, we paid for campsites 2 times, like a grand total of 2 times. And that's not to say with our RV and our 2 kids that we're going to manage to do that in the exact same way.
Also, it's much easier in the western U.S. to do that than the eastern or southern U.S.
And this 2026 road trip is actually going to be an East Coast road trip. So we want to go from like Nova Scotia, like down to Florida, basically. So I imagine it will be more expensive, but luckily we are also better equipped to handle that now. So
one of the things I would say to people, and I'd be curious to see if you both agree with this, is I think any decisions you make in life are always going to come with certain sacrifices, and you have to decide what sacrifices you're willing to make, which things in life that seem important to you, you're willing to eschew, and that's how you accomplish things. Because I've had the same sort of thing with different types of my lifestyle where people be like, oh, you're so lucky to do that. And it's like, there is a lot of truth to that. There are also lots of sacrifices that I've made, and we could list them off. And for you guys, it's the same. You're not going to have a pension. You're not going to have a variety of other things that people do. You're not going to own a boat. You're not going to be able to have a place with a boat.
Unless it's a boat that we live on because we've given up our house.
Right. So I think people have to look at what they want more and what they're willing to sacrifice, and then sacrifice those things.
Yeah, I think that we're super lucky the way that we sort of think alike in a lot of ways. So it doesn't necessarily feel like sacrifices to either one of us. Like if one of us really cared about one thing over another thing, then maybe it would feel more like a sacrifice for one of us. I don't know. How do you feel?
Yeah, find a partner that you agree on.
Yeah, that's
like
really good.
Major lifestyle decisions and like money on. I mean, that totally changes the game.
I think our thought process in going to these is so aligned that we're just like, yeah, that makes the most sense. Why wouldn't we live in an RV? Like,
definitely,
of course.
there's nothing that feels sacrificial about it. It's like it's the same, and I think athletes in general really understand this. It's just thinking about your life in more long term, but it's just thinking about your life in a longer time span. An athlete, you're not like squatting heavy weight because it feels really good. You're doing it because it makes you strong, and you're not waking up early to train because it's like the most fun. You're doing it because it makes you the person that you want to be in the future. You're putting in your time now to be the person that you want to be in the future. And the same thing goes for the quote unquote sacrifices that you make about, not doing this or not doing that or not buying this or not buying that. Well, in the future, you end up doing the things that you really want, the big things that you really want to do.
The things that were more important than those small sacrifices.
Yeah. And they're not even sacrifices. It feels like progress along the way.
So I think we're approaching the point where we should wrap this up. And I feel like you guys have kind of already left some of the final thoughts. But as you may remember from when you were on the show before, I'm going to force you both to leave the audience with a final thought. So let's do that. Who wants to go first?
Okay. So
I was just going to yell YOLO.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think American society is set up around progress being making more money and showing that you have more money and climbing the status ladder. Doing that is devaluing the thing that you actually have limited as a resource, which is your time. If you think about your life as a limited amount of time and how can you do the most awesome things with that limited amount of time, then a lot of the things that you want to do become easier to do than if you get swept up in what American society kind of teaches you to want, which is like a richer life or looking more rich or having more status or doing fancier things. I think that's a trap to lead you to spending your time in ways that you don't actually want to spend it. So think about your time and what you need to do to spend more time doing what you want to do.
Since having a kid, we've realized like spending time with him, spending time with each other, spending time with friends and family is definitely the things that we value the most. And so figuring out how to organize our life in a way that we can do that stuff as much as possible, rather than like show the world, oh, look at our fancy new car or our big beautiful house. Like, to us it's more important that we get to see our friend, like you guys live across the country, but our friends across the country come and, you know, stay with us, and, you know, we get to see my family in Kansas and his family in Rhode Island and in the Boston area, and that Van gets to see and experience all of these people too, because that's really what we want to teach him.
And live it on the road in 2026.
All right, so it sounds like those are the final words. I just want to tack on to what you said, to what you guys said. Also, because sometimes I think what people hear is, oh, do what you want, blah, 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 be selfish. But that's not what you guys are saying. It's figure out what makes life richer and then still be a contributing member of society, but in the most valuable way. And the most valuable way isn't have the most money.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it might be for some people. But I don't know.
No.
I don't know. But it doesn't seem like that.
I think it's like figure out to contribute to society in a way that uses your unique expertise in whatever it is that you've been interested in or passionate about in your life.
And so with that, we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to thank you both for letting Erica and I come crash at your house and hang out with you and ride bikes and play in the rain and go look at H.P. Lovecraft's grave and all the other things.
Thanks for sitting through that, Erica.
And surf tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, and apparently we're going to surf in the morning.
Yeah.
And before I turn this off, I'm going to make Erica say her thanks on the microphone also.
Say
Thanks,
Erica.
everyone. I'm Erica. Take care. Have a great night.
Say the closers, Erica.
Good night, everybody.
So I've been making podcasts for a few years now. You're probably aware of that if you listen to this show regularly. And I recently switched to Zencastr because podcasting is not always easy. But Zencastr is an all-in-one solution that is here to make podcasting easy. You can record directly through your browser, whether you have an audio podcast, a video podcast, or if you're like me and you record your podcast out in the field, you can still work with Zencastr's tools. It's there whether you want to build everything in your browser or whether you want to build it somewhere separately and then move it into your browser. Super easy to use audio or video podcast. They have post-production tools to help you sound your best, to take out the ums and ahs, to remove awkward pauses, to adjust your loudness and your levels for you. If you've ever heard me do this show and you thought, that seems pretty easy, I want to go make my own podcast, well, you know, it is pretty easy if you go use Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code GOPODCAST, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experience I do for all of my podcasting needs. I think it's time for you to go share your story. Plastics were a wonderful invention that have a myriad of uses, but we have unfortunately become overly dependent on them in our society. And now we use them in everything, and they end up in our oceans, they end up in our food, they end up in our bodies. And that's why I want to tell you about Sun and Swell Foods. They're the nation's first online plastic-free grocery store. They have an assortment of delicious, healthy foods in plastic-free, and get this, compostable packaging. If you don't have access to composting, that's cool because they also have a program where you can send back all your packaging and they will compost it for you. Their foods are 100% plant-based and vegan, 100% gluten-free, and 100% real food. No added preservatives, no added unnecessary ingredients. So if you are looking for a more planet-friendly pantry, shop Sun and Swell and get 20% off site-wide when you go to sunandswellfoods.com and use code GOPODCAST at checkout. That is 20% off your entire order when you use GOPODCAST at sunandswellfoods.com. And of course, we've come to the part of the show where I invite you all to go to our website, gogetoutside.com, look for this episode 108 with Kat and Craig, and there you're going to find photographs, you're going to find links to all of the things we talked about in today's show. And since you are already going to be on a computer machine, perhaps you want to get in touch with us here at the show. Well, there are a number of ways you can do that. You can send us an email, jason@gogetoutside.com. You could text us or leave a voicemail at 818-925-0106. And as always, please go to your podcast purveyor of choice. Make sure you have subscribed to the show, rate it, review it, and please share it with someone who you think will enjoy this. Next time on the show, I mentioned earlier in this season that I would periodically release a bonus episode. Well, if you come back in a week, we will have the first of those bonus episodes. And if you come back a week after that, on December 16th, we'll have a brand new regular episode of this show. And it is a hell of an episode. If you have ever enjoyed this show, you will want to come back December 16th for episode 109 with Eileen Bell. I can't think of anyone who is not going to enjoy this absolutely ridiculous episode. So please come back December 16th so that you can hear about Eileen's ludicrous nomadic lifestyle, her past train hopping experiences, her questionable decisions in life that always seem to pay off, the beautiful power of friendship, and the might of the mighty whistle pig. December 16th, Eileen Bell. Don't miss it. See you then. So I know there are mornings where I think, it'd be great to have a nice big fruit smoothie, but I don't feel like breaking out the big blender. I don't want to clean the blender afterwards, and so I just end up eating a bowl of cereal. Well, someone has come along to help us solve this problem, and that is BlendJet. Specifically, BlendJet 2. BlendJet 2 is portable, so you can blend up a smoothie at work, protein shake at the gym, or even a margarita on the beach. It's small enough to fit in a cup holder, but powerful enough to blast through tough ingredients like ice and frozen fruit with ease. BlendJet 2 is whisper quiet, so you can make your morning smoothie without waking up the whole house. Lasts for 15 plus blends and recharges quickly via USB-C. And best of all, BlendJet 2 cleans itself. Just blend water with a drop of soap and you are good to go. And if you're thinking, but is it beautiful? Does it come in the color that I like? Well, more than likely the answer to that is yes, because they've got 30 plus colors and patterns to choose from. You could even pick urban camo if that's what you're into. So what are you waiting for? Go to blendjet.com, grab yours today, and be sure to use the promo code GOPODCAST to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. No other portable blender on the market comes close to the quality, power, and innovation of the BlendJet 2. They guarantee you'll love it or your money back. So blend anytime, anywhere with the BlendJet 2 portable blender. Go to blendjet.com and use the code GOPODCAST to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. Shop today and get the best deal ever.